Hello everybody and welcome back to the Izzyverse. Today's topic is, should we flashpoint the DCEU? I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why we should. Starting with reason number 1, the Snyderverse has got to go. Yes, I know many people like the Snyderverse, but it's not what made DC Comics great. The Snyderverse is pretty much DC's universe within a Watchmen world. I do have a problem with that. I don't like that. In this world, we have a Superman that is emo, we have a Batman that is bitter and old and has way too much baggage, a Cyborg who is dark and moody. Even the Teen Titans cartoon series had made fun of this, to the point that they said, we need to make our characters dark. There's a great episode about that. Go check that one out. As I recall, reading as a kid, DC Comics wasn't about being dark. It was really a mixture of character types. Superman stood for truth, justice, and the American way. Batman was the Dark Knight of vengeance. Green Lantern was all about willpower and being cocky. Wonder Woman was the embodiment of female empowerment. Flash was a fun-loving scientist, and yes, Aquaman was with fish. You ask me? Let's get rid of the Snyderverse. Let's remove ourselves from that universe, which is now long and gone. Snyder had his chance to do his work, and he did a pretty good job with some, not with everything. Number 2, you want to eliminate the crap. And what I'm talking about the Ezra Miller, the Amber Heard, Batgirl was scrapped, Bat villains like Joker, Luthor, and Cheetah. All this is not necessary. All this can be changed. Let's start off with Ezra Miller. Yeah, let's go there. Ezra Miller needs help. We know this. Everything that he's going through, the struggles he is going through, the behavior patterns he has demonstrated need to stop. And it's hurting not only the business, it's hurting him as a person. Unfortunately, Warner Media has not done anything about it until recently. They have allowed this behavior to continue. And it's not good for Ezra Miller. Now, I'm not trying to say that WB is a parent to Ezra Miller. That's the parent's responsibility, not WB. But when I get in trouble, my boss tells me about it. My boss corrects me when I have erratic behavior. I may even be fired for that erratic behavior. So what makes Ezra Miller different in this case? What makes Warner Media not responsible for the actions that Ezra Miller's have been taking? Sure, they're not going down in the ship like he probably will. But they do have a level of responsibility to the person in helping that person do it. WB has enabled Ezra Miller to be what they have become. Let's not forget Amber Heard. She's another one. Though not as intense as Miller, her actions have been in the public eye for far too long. The court case has not helped her character. I hope that she does as well seek help that she needs. As far as her future with Aquaman, last I heard, they're taking her out. And let's take a moment and talk about Batgirl for a second. This movie was showing signs of being what we call a hot mess, and thankfully so, WB put an end to it. Now let's move on to the villain problem. Now, this is nothing new in the case of superhero movies. Villains have always been a problem. But in DC in particular, it's really bad. Let's start off with the Joker. The Joker has been, by many, considered the greatest villain of all time. But in the DCEU, Jared Leto's portrayal of the Clown Prince of Crime has been anything but great. He's more like a gangster who laughs, rather than someone that is absolutely terrifying, but at the same time makes you laugh. Then we could go into Superman's villains. We'll start off with Lex Luthor. Yeah, that was not a good portrayal of Lex Luthor. He seemed more like a snot-nosed brat than Superman's counterpart. Doomsday? The less I talk about Doomsday, the better. And what about Darkseid? We didn't even give Darkseid a chance. Cheetah just needed a friend. And it goes on and on and on and on. Number 3, let's focus more on relatable characters. Aquaman's a dude. Shazam is a kid living out his dreams. These are relatable characters. The Flash was a relatable character as well, but let's not talk about Miller again. But what's different about Flash is that he was very different from his comic counterpart. The comic counterpart was a scientist, a fun-loving scientist. Whether you go with Barry Allen or Wally West, personally I'm a fan of Wally West, he was a bit of a jokester as well. We haven't really seen that in the movies. Wonder Woman is not exactly relatable, but who is was Steve Trevor. Their chemistry was perfect, that worked for the viewer. We need to see characters that can be relatable and likable, but that doesn't mean we need representation, though that's not a bad thing. I mean we need characters that have similar traits that we have. It's what makes Marvel work so well. Let's take 3 MCU characters: Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Iron Man is a billionaire, so that part is not as relatable, nor is it him being a genius. But one day he had an epiphany about what he was doing and his riches, and he needed to atone for them. To right his wrongs, he became Iron Man. And he did everything he can to fix the world. He has a very redeemable story arc. Captain America was a small-town boy from Brooklyn, was given the super soldier serum, but that didn't change him. That didn't change the person who he is, who he became. He was still a dorky kid from Brooklyn. How many dorky kids out here wishes to be a superhero like him? Even he was deemed worthy of holding Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Yeah, Thor is a god, but he is the most human out of all these characters. Why? He got family issues. He got daddy issues. He has a jealous brother who wants to kill him every step of the way. He even has bad relationships with his girlfriend Jane, and a strange relationship with his hammer. But all of this makes these characters relatable. That is the same formula DC needs to have for their characters. Number 4, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, we need to change the tone to make it bright and hopeful. One thing I never got about the Snyderverse was the dark brim tone of the universe. DC Comics has a unique tapestry of tones that make them great, but all we have come to know is how dark this world is. It really isn't supposed to be that way. Go back to the original Superman movie. It was Americana at its finest in the 80s and 90s. This universe is hopeless and dark and bitter. The universe has the greatest superheroes of all time, but no one knows that. Everybody's fearful of them. The big 3 are supposed to stand for the best in the world. They are public figures and role models. If you go to the comic books in JLA Avengers crossover, Kurt Busiek and the late great George Perez demonstrate this perfectly. When the Marvel heroes arrive to the DC world, they're stunned by how much the heroes are glorified and praised. This is what the DCEU should look like. That doesn't mean it can't have its side of dark. It doesn't mean it can't have its side of bitterness. But it should have a perfect blend of lighthearted characters like Shazam and Aquaman, and dark characters like Batman. Superman should be a symbol of hope, not some emo kid. My last point is an obvious one, and it needs to be executed immediately. Hire an executive head of DC Films. DCEU needs a Kevin Feige. It needs to be a person that knows the characters, but also understands and listens to the pulse of the audience. This person does not have to adhere to the public, but listen to what they have to say and what they're saying about your movies. We need to see more characters like Green Lantern, Robin, and a proper Justice League. This person needs to set the blueprint for the future of the DCEU alongside a set of directors that can have the freedom to tell good stories within the world of DCEU. They need to make their movies without changing the core of what these characters are and what makes them great and what they mean to the public. This head of DC can offer the beats and let the director craft the details without going off course. Sure, they will have hits and misses, but if you plan a good story and tell it with the right characters, you will win. In conclusion, this is what makes a good DCEU movie happen. This is what makes a good DCEU universe. Let's move forward. Let's get rid of all the minutia. Thanks for listening. Tell me what you think. What do you think we should do with the DCEU today? Let me know in the comments. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcast platform, make sure to rate and review this episode. Share it with others. Also, keep in mind the Izzyverse is on YouTube. Do me a favor and subscribe to the Izzyverse. Like the channel. Leave a comment. Share it, of course, with everybody. Until next time, in the words of the great Stan Lee, Excelsior.